What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to talk about the overall market and break down what's happening with all this news, not to mention what's going on with the pattern that's developing on Tesla. But let me just mention that I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, but it's the entire community as a whole. Anyways, guys, the market's been dipping quite a bit after we got some negative data. We ended up seeing not the best manufacturing numbers coming out for Thursday. And then for Friday, we got some weak employment numbers. So the market is quite fearful, especially as some indicators are suggesting the US is getting closer to a recession. And that's the big word that a lot of people did not want to hear. But seeing the fact that the Fed has been raising interest rates and keeping them high for an extended period of time, there's a lag effect on the economy that's really starting to have its toll. If you look at earnings so far, they're not as strong as what they used to be. We're really seeing a decline for a lot of companies like Amazon, even for the Teslas out there. And it's very, very difficult. Now, the Fed has come out and they're mentioning that, yes, as long as all the data that comes out from this point on is like decent or close to expectations, the Fed will be inclined to give us a cut for the month of September. So yes, that could be very interesting. It's also a very, very interesting how that would be like right before the election. But I also want to make it very clear that even if the Fed does give us a small cut of like 25 basis points or even 50 basis points, that does not just undo all the damage that's been done. Unemployment is rising. It's actually above what many analysts were expecting. And with this going on, the US is seeing economic contraction in many different sectors. Things are becoming more difficult for everyday Americans, and it's something that just has to be accounted for. So the market's very fearful amidst all this data, and that's part of why Tesla's being dragged down. On top of this, you have to remember that there's a lot of chaos that's going on around the world as the U.S. is getting involved with the situations going on in the Middle East, and it's very tough. I personally think that this is not just sad, but it's going to be very difficult for people all over the world, especially innocent lives. So I just hope for the best, and I hope that violence does not escalate. But that's something that's like kind of like on the edge right now. So we'll see how things end up going. I hope for peace, and we just have to continue at least from this point on. Now, just notes that I'm kind of giving you guys a real time update right now. As of right now, at the time I'm recording this, things have not escalated to that degree, but there are lots of threats that that's going to end up happening. So we'll see how things end up going. Amidst all of this, now the question is what's going to happen to Tesla in the markets. So I drew out this structure in my earlier video about how it is possible and Tesla gets a little bit of a pullback from that big rally we got. And notice how symmetrical the chart is looking. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of symmetry right here. We have this like left shoulder here, we had a right shoulder here, got this rally which kind of like resembles this. So it's like a mirror image right over here. So in these different phases, what you could do is kind of like take a trend line, and what you'll notice is that these supports kind of align pretty closely. It's not perfect, but it's close. But this was the support that was holding Tesla up, and this is kind of like this broke temporarily, only to get bought back up at least over time. So that's something that developed in the chart just temporarily until we saw this like rally as we approached that 300 area. And then what you'll notice is that with that happening, it's possible we could see something similar if we take a trend line like this and kind of draw it out very similar to this. We are starting to just barely test this support, which if we do break, we could just temporarily break this before something else. But what else is very interesting to me is the fact that when you look at the levels, now the specific levels are very interesting to me as well. If I take a horizontal line like this, these align with one another very nicely. So we dipped all the way down to 194. This was before this inverse head and shoulders formed. So after it formed, if this were to be a symmetrical structure, that would suggest that that is a possibility. Now, it's possible, and I'm going to actually make this very simple to understand, that this is our inverse head and shoulders on this side. So this is like the first part of this pattern, and then the mirror image is forming this other part of it with another inverse head and shoulders like structure. So that's where we have this pattern right over here that's very symmetrical. And then if I take another pattern like this, you'll see we have like a kind of like a V-shaped move that had formed. We dipped and then we bounced. Well, maybe the opposite's about to happen. Maybe we're about to see something that is where we get this like big dip all the way down to this level, and then we see a big recovery after that, possibly approaching the robotaxi event. That's a strong possibility. But when you look at this pattern does look very, very symmetrical. On top of this, when you look at this from a different perspective, if I just kind of start deleting these just to show you this, you will notice that it's not just based off patterns, because patterns alone are not always going to be sufficient. If we were to take this, you will notice that this aligns with a very, very key level. So, like right about here, it happens to be between our zero point 0.5 and our 0.618 retracement area. And that's almost the same as our retracement on the other side. So, if you look at this on a symmetrical basis, this is very similar right over here. We bounced between the zero point 0.5 and 0.618 retracement the last time we saw this. Or, I'm sorry, this is the level we were at relative to where we ended up running to. So, there's a lot of symmetry here. So now the question becomes, where will Tesla retrace to? And honestly, guys, it depends. You could draw out a flag like this. This could be forming a very, very nice flag, but it's not a guarantee. If we break through the flag, that could be a bullish signal, but we're not really doing that yet. Tesla's been doing this so far, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in the flag. So one could presume that's going to likely continue to do that until we finally get a break from this. If we break like this, that's your signal that this is going to try to break out all the way back up to the highs if we get a break, right? So for now, we're not breaking out. In fact, we're making lower highs and lower lows. So this temporary cycle, right? The market moves in cycles. The algos dictate Tesla in cycles. The cycle is bearish. We're making lower highs and lower lows. So the most simple thing I could tell you is it all depends on these key levels. I think 194 is a key level. This is very close to where this previous resistance becoming support happens to be, and also this level like right here. So this is going to be a very important level, this 194 zone. So for Tesla, as we're downtrending, okay, it depends whether or not this continues depends on if we could hold 215 or not. If we somehow get bought back up, because cycles and patterns don't have to be perfectly symmetrical. It's very close right now, right? We reached 206 or something. That's not that far from 194. That's pretty close. So if we reclaim 215, then there's a chance Tesla could try to rebound and maybe make an attempt to get back to this upper trend line, right? If the market does get some kind of rebound, it depends if we could hold 215 or not. So I think we're going to rebound just a little bit, but if we don't reclaim 215, then I do anticipate we're going to dip even lower as this trend is looking more bearish. So I'll be watching that very, very carefully. And I think that we're going to see a very, very strong confluence of support from this trend line, from this bear flag, or I'm sorry, this potential bull flag, excuse me. And then also because of this 194 area, which aligns with our zero point 0.5 and 0.618 retracement area. So 194 to 200 is going to be a very, very important area of interest. I think that if Tesla does reach it, we'll be watching to see if we get some kind of bounce off that or not. How do we know it's going to bounce? If we break structure, if we break past this upper resistance, then yes, Tesla could get that breakout. So I'll be watching it very carefully. But I do want to call out that this is very interesting how symmetrical Tesla is looking in this pattern. And it is possible we see a similar structure that's developing. Are we about to do something very similar this entire way? Is this whole thing just going to be a mirror image? It's always a possibility. But for now, Tesla is bearish. Okay, we were down 4% on Friday. We dipped quite a bit. I think that's as long as there's no massive, attack that happens involving geopolitics and such. As long as that doesn't happen, and as long as there's no major bad news, Tesla could rebound just a little bit, maybe try to get back to 210, if not 215. And if we close above 215 or hold it, we could rebound. If we don't, there's going to be another rejection coming, and then Tesla could get closer to 200, if not 194. That's going to be a very, very key level if we do end up dipping lower. But so far, this trend is more bearish. There is a risk of more downside. Is this a big crash? I would not call this a crash. This is more like a corrective phase that Tesla is in. And I still think that there's a lot of potential for a rebound once we get to October. And that's going to be because of the robotaxi events once we get lots of hype. So we'll see how things go. Please be very, very optimistic and know that this is not the end of the world. Tesla's going to be completely fine. This downtrend is very, very important to watch for, and it's providing more and more buying opportunities for the long term. Tesla's share price is going to go into the thousands easily, in my opinion, as years progress because of so many different factors from Optimus, AI developments, their sales, and such. The Fed is going to start cutting rates, and eventually, interest rates will get lower and lower, which will improve things for Tesla from the more long term. For the short term, the pain that already began because of interest rates rising for the past year is still going to affect Tesla for many more months to come. So for the short term, because interest rates are going to remain elevated, even if they give us like a 25 or 50 basis point cut for the year, even if that happens, even if it's a little more than that, the interest rates were still high for so long that the effect that they have is going to continue to last. So if the effect continues to last, right, I think it's going to be very important to note, and you have to remember that the next few months could still see some hardships for Tesla. But as interest rates decrease, eventually Tesla will make a comeback. Eventually, things will become better for them, and demand will shift for the EV sector. So once again, guys, this is going to take time. Tesla's a very, very long-term play. It's not just a short-term play. There are going to be short-term cycles where it kind of pumps and dumps, but the long term is still very bullish nonetheless. For SPY, I kind of called out these levels already for everyone. It's very simple, really, the way I kind of see this. Um, Basically, I'm looking at the weekly time frame, okay? And this is, I think, the most important time frame for SPY. If we hypothetically lose 528, if 528 breaks on SPY, there's going to be a risk of more downside. Okay, there's going to be a lot more risk. If we close below that for next Friday for the weekly, I think that there's going to be a big drop coming, and SPY could reach the lower 500s. All right, but there's a big but. If we close above 528, so far we're holding it, and that's going to be a sign that SPY is trying to base. And if we break past 536 or even close above that on any day, there's a good chance we might try to fill our gap back up to about the 540 area. So there might be a little rebound. So it all depends on our levels. It's still hard for me to predict everything because it depends on so many factors. On Monday, we have more economic data coming out. We have the ISM services data. So remember on Thursday, we got the manufacturing data that caused the market to dump. How about the services sector? This is going to be another big factor. Will the market dump more? We'll have to wait and see. It's always a possibility. Um, and then also it depends on this whole situation in the Middle East. I mean, this is very, very tense right now. Hopefully there aren't any more attacks. If there is an attack, this could lead to the market dipping. So be careful. And indicators are still showing that we're entering a recessionary environment. It's tough. That does not mean we're officially in one. This is just like these are just some factors that suggest it. So you want to be very, very careful. So we'll see how it goes. We are still looking more bearish in terms of our trend, but we'll have to see if we could hold 528 or not. That's going to be a very, very important level. Right now, the trend is bearish, but we will see if the data leads to a bounce or not. We still look bearish on the charts. So does the QQQ. I mean, we lost 450. It's not a good sign. We're testing this support here on the weekly. Check out the weekly on the QQQ. This 448 area, we lost 450, but this is going to be our support. If we lose structure here, if we don't hold 446 to 444 that supports, I think that this could be dipping all the way down to about the 420s if we end up losing that area. If we hold the 440 zone, we could rebound, but then we're going to test some tough resistance at 457. So we'll see how it goes, but just know the triple Q is still looking more bearish. There's no sign of a bounce yet, so you have to be very patient. Okay, so for my predictions and such, I gave you guys an analysis of levels to watch for, but let me just make it very clear that I can't promise anything. And there's so many external factors affecting the market right now that I can't predict every single move. At least when it comes to like the more medium term. I will do my best to do this on a day-to-day basis in my future videos, but just note that there's a lot going on around the world in terms of the Middle East, not to mention economic data. So the best thing I can really do is remain patient, give you guys levels, and I will do my best to continue to give you guys predictions on a daily basis. But just note that I'm a human, I can't predict everything, and sometimes unexpected things could happen. So you want to be very, very careful. Just notes that the market's in a very, very critical place. We'll see what ends up developing as time goes on. And even if Tesla does dip more, it does not mean Tesla's going to crash. That does not guarantee it. Tesla could still rebound based off what I showed you on the bigger time frames, right? Based off this flag that could be forming and also these other factors if the symmetrical structure is developing. Okay, so thank you all so much for listening. This is just a very, very quick and simple update. I'll be back tomorrow to give you guys a more meticulous update about the shorter term projections for the markets for SPY, NVIDIA, AMD, and many other tickers. Until then, I want to just thank you all so much for listening. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you for listening, and peace out.